environmental impacts of increased mining. Mark, I think you have to talk very fast to keep up with the time.
Yes, I will talk very fast. No
or
worries,
you leave
no
out
worries.
some slides
It's
so that
okay.
you can come to the conclusion that you would like to have, and later on we can share the full presentation.
I can do it very quickly.
So I give you the go.
Thank you. Just share my screen. Can you see it?
Yes, we can.
Okay, well, I think when we talk about mining, energy transition, and biodiversity, what we all care about is what's the bottom line? What is below the bottom line? Is that positive or negative? Sorry. We already know that, of course, that there's a clear link between mines and a lot of high biodiversity areas, like a lot of forests. A report was out in 1999. In 2011, UNESCO brought out a report that a large percentage of our World Heritage sites are being threatened by the mining sector, negatively impacted by the sector. This is a 2020 image of a nickel mining area in Sulawesi, where currently there is a boom in nickel mining for the energy transition specifically. Also, Tesla had a look at it. When we look at these images, then you have to ask, you can see here the forest or the ex-forest and the mine. So we've got to keep this in mind when we think about energy transition and mining for the transition minerals. Often this takes place in forested areas. Mining is one land use option. You can see on the right-hand picture, you can see the consequences of ill-guided mining, what consequences this may have on another sector, like for here, coastal fisheries. So what we see over the last 10, 15 years is a global increase in competing claims between the mining sector, the extractive sector, and the global protected area system and the global indigenous peoples' lands areas. And this conflict is getting bigger and bigger as we speak. We are talking about an increase in illegal mining, in legal mining, in semi-legal mining, in industrial mining, in small-scale mining, in artisanal mining. And of course, when we talk about industrial mining, when you talk about due diligence, one of the issues that needs to be in place is a proper environmental impact assessment. In most of the contracts that we see in developing economies, these are just rubber stamp procedures and do not function as a management tool at all. Other speakers have mentioned it before, massive increase in mining activities for the transition minerals. 40%, the World Bank 2019 report, 40% of all operational mines lie in forested areas. And we need those forests also for our climate adaptation and mitigation. So coming to the conclusion, what we can do, what we feel as a global conservation union that needs to be done, is that we need to mobilize more state and private actors to subscribe to and implement forward-looking performance standards such as the IRMA. What we also need is, and other speakers have also mentioned it, that we need a public eye. We need eyes on the ground that watch over public interest in the very long term. So we need the eyes and ears of the people that live in the production areas. So we need to involve structurally civil society, the labor unions, the universities, in due diligence research and participatory monitoring of mine sites, and not only mine site, but also the associated infrastructures. Because the mining companies usually tend to focus on their legal mine footprint, while the infrastructure that is needed usually has a lot of impact on the landscape and on the connectivity within the landscape. The other sort of structural thing that I think we all need to think about is that we need to move away from talking about mining governance or sustainable mining, because there is no such thing as sustainable mining. You mine something, and at one point in time, you're left with a hole. So maybe you can do it responsibly, but I think we should shift that discussion from talking about mining governance to governance of our mineral resource base. So looking from a host country perspective, from a producing country's perspective, look at the mineral resources that we have in our soils, in your soils, and how we can best make use of these minerals for the well-being of the society at large. And then the last point, I think, is that we should enhance, and meaning also the governments that we work with and the financial institutions that we work with, is that we should dramatically enhance public access to the environmental impact assessments, which are in most countries legal documents that should be in the public domain. This was it. A last picture is an endemic bird from the nickel mining area in South Sulawesi, endemic and highly endangered. And this is the thing that we tend to lose if we don't do it carefully, our mines.
Thank you very much, Mark. It was very clear and you did it very fast. So thank you for that. So this will allow us some time to have another discussion with our panelists, whom I would like to introduce right now.
Pauline, sorry to interrupt. Could we, because Mark still has a few minutes left, a question we prepared for Mark, could we ask that?
Sure. Let me see what Mark, what is the first thing multi-stakeholder agreements, like our own in the metals agreement, should do to make sure we are prepared for a just energy transition in the mining sector?
Other speakers have mentioned it already. I think it all starts with transparency in the value chain. That is one aspect. So I think we need to push for, because it's very difficult to say anything about responsible mining if we do not know the source of the minerals or the source of the product. And the other thing that other speakers have also mentioned, I think, is that we should enhance tripartite monitoring, civil society, state, and company, doing that joint monitoring to make sure that it's not the company that is monitoring their own performance.
Thank you very much.